teacher and logic teacher in some school, I forget which, mostly for young kids though, wasn't it? Or not? Maybe it was a university. But in any case, he's the one that wrote Alice in Wonderland. Yes? And if you're thinking of I remember the one movie which is not really Alice in Wonderland, but follows up on Alice in Wonderland, you know, where the music goes, you know, no, I have no talent. Dang it, I wish I had talent. That would be so useful. Yeah, but if you remember Severus Snape, who was the blue caterpillar in this one, he's sitting there and he says to Alice, "Who are you?" You know, and smoking, you know, opium or whatever hashish. I don't know when you smoke it and you're, woo, you know, that's what he's doing, right? And if you think about it, that was legal at the time for Lewis Carroll, and yeah, and made you have interesting stories, you know, which you don't with children, etc. And it's also a logical puzzle, which is really cool. Alice in Wonderland or Through the Looking Glass, those are actually logical puzzles, etc., which is just neat. But, so opium, kind of a thing going on, legal, and a lot of people are using it. And in fact, Karl Marx is going to use it himself in later life because he's ill. He's got all kinds of things, so he's taking ridiculous things to try to solve it. The problem doesn't work, and he dies in 1883, 2 years after his wife died. By the way, I know this is a total non sequitur, but I love how silly Marx's poems to his wife Jenny are. And if you
can you pull it up?
Pardon?
Can you pull it up?
Sure. Warum nicht? They're not. I find them in English though, and he clearly wrote them in German. So. Jenny. He married her, so I don't know if it was his poems that did it. I guess that's what a communist sounds like in poetry. He wouldn't have been a communist yet. This is when he's a young man and he's in love. And in fact, it got him in trouble with his dad because he was in love with Jenny and drinking. And so his first year at Bonn University for law wasn't going so well, so Dad insisted he leave there and go to Berlin. And so he did that. You know. And I don't know if that meant that Jenny, you know, was too far away from, you know, maybe that's why he started writing poems, I don't know. But in any case, Berlin is where he ends up falling in with Feuerbach and others. They are called the Young Hegelians because they're followers of Hegel, but they have a specific slant on Hegelian philosophy. The Orthodox Hegelians were the older ones. They didn't get called the older ones, but the younger ones were called the Young Hegelians. So, and what was the big difference? Well, Feuerbach's influence gives them materialism, and Hegel, remember, talks about the Geist. You know, so he talks about Geist at all these different levels: your own individual self-consciousness, your relationship with another self-consciousness, your relationship with a group who has kind of a self-consciousness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the way up to God. By the way, God needs a self-consciousness to be a God, literally, and therefore God has to have this kind of social relationship with others, right? In order to be a self-consciousness. It has to be recognized in order for God to be a God, literally. And how do you then connect that to the whole idea of God being that in which nothing greater can be thought. The answer goes back to Augustine. Remember Augustine, I drew the circle. God's in the center. We're the ones that notice God interacting with us this way, this way, this way, this way. But for God, all of that happens at once. So Hegel's idea of what God is gives a lot of people the worry that, number one, he might be a Spinozaist, which is evil as far as orthodoxy is concerned, because remember Spinoza was a pantheist. Everything is God, right? Well, no, you can't be that if you want to be orthodox, otherwise you're kicked out from everybody reading you, right? So no, Hegel says he's not a Spinozaist. So God is other and created everything, but from God's perspective, everything all happened at once. So God isn't going through this evolutionary experience that we experience in our relationship with God. But that whole concept of God having this inner relationship with the consciousnesses that are us was something that is always part of God's self-consciousness. So you get the interesting way that Hegel remains orthodox and yet at the same time follows the same planogram for this dialectical process, right? Well, that's all Geist, or as we would say today, what do we say today? Social consciousness, we have lots of names for it. Any Jung followers out there? Carl Jung? Anybody? Psychology, Carl Jung? Do you guys even read Carl Jung anymore? Yes? What do you know about Carl Jung? Put you on the spot. Shouldn't do that. That's evil, right? But what are you familiar with Carl Jung?
No, I just know that we've talked about it.
Yeah.
In my psychology class.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because he talks about the unconscious. Today we don't use the unconscious; we use the subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. But in his concept, there's this unconscious, which is kind of like the will of Schopenhauer, which we haven't talked about yet. But it's like this dynamic interplay of forces that's in spirit. It's literally embedded in life in such a way that we have these archetypes. And in fact, Jesus is considered an archetype. And not just a Christian archetype. Jung is not I should show you who Jung is. Sorry.
Doesn't he also discuss Freud and Heidi?
Yes. Although he's a follower of Freud, even though he's not Junger than Freud. Sorry. You can tell I've used that one before. He was older than Freud, and yet a follower of Freud. But this idea that there's this unconscious dynamic which creates, say, an image of the God ought to be a trinity and a fourth element. There's four elements. Well, so the Trinity is masculine. So God the Father is traditionally masculine. And then you have Jesus, who's male. Actually, Jung considers Jesus to be hermaphroditic. Thank you. Which is kind of a combination of masculine and feminine, because he continues on the feminine from his mother. So Jesus has to be kind of a little bit of both for Carl Jung. And the Holy Spirit then is also a masculine influence. So the Trinity is masculine, but the mother would be the feminine. So he's very into these archetypes, or as Joseph Campbell will call them, shoot, I forget what Joseph Campbell calls them, but he calls them something. Who's Joseph Campbell?
Author of the, oh God, was it The Anatomy of the Story? What is it?
Well, a Thousand Faces of the Hero. The hero.
The Hero of a Thousand
Where am I?
Faces.
The Hero of a Thousand Faces. These are all related. They all lead to one another, so they're all connected. Joseph. Oh, read that one. Oh, do I want that? That's actually the most boring book I've ever read. It's kind of like a phone book of hero stories.
I got a 4.4 review.
It is
We
like,
have to talk about who does these reviews, you know. But yeah, so actually you could just go images. There you go. There's the hero's journey. And by the way, Joseph Campbell was George Lucas's guru. Who's George Lucas?
Maker of Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay.
Yeah.
We caught up with one another. Yeah, so Joseph Campbell was his guru, and Star Wars initially was meant to be a crappy movie based on this. So if you follow this, you see Luke Skywalker's whole hero's journey.
Do you think Star Wars is boring?
No, it was meant to be. You know, it was a cheap movie. It was, just, just crazy music, just everything. Nobody will like this. Everybody loved it so much that movies can only be Star Wars now. that was like amazing, and actually kind of a demonstration that this really works. I mean, you could think about this hero's journey and ask, what movies are successful today, or what novels do you like that don't do this? I mean, you can plug in everybody, basically, and you can figure out that's kind of the ticket. And why is it the ticket? Because if you're following Jung, there's these unconscious dynamic characteristics of life that are part of our consciousness that draw us to like these things, specific things. And that comes from Jung, and Jung through Freud, and those through people like Feuerbach and Hegel and stuff. Yes?
This is completely unrelated, but I think I did a project on this in my freshman year of high school, and I did the SpongeBob movie.
Okay,
Which
that's
movie?
The SpongeBob movie?
SpongeBob.
Yeah,
He's
how-
the one that has square pants.
Yes.
I think he's the one that's a
South Park
sponge
fit this
stuff.
movie? Or this diagram? I don't feel like South Park.
Episodes of South Park, what?
Episodes.
Like the one where they try not to say curse words and then they say curse words a bunch?
So there's no hero.
There's some mythologies that follow the hero's journey as well.
Okay, fine, whatever. I'm actually thinking of the hero.
Well, the book, The Thousand Faces of the Hero, or the Thousand, it's 1,000. I don't actually think it's 1,000, but it's like a phone book, with like this story, this this story, it's like, okay, I get the point. He's finding out which stories have which characteristics of this, and then says the best ones always turn out to have all of these, or something close to it. So I don't know if SpongeBob, does he die and resurrect?
No.
No?
He almost
No?
dies.
He almost dies.
He changes,
He does. He goes back to a regular sponge, he dries out.
Yeah.
Which I think you could consider if he dries out and then comes back, and then doesn't dry out again.
That sounds like a resurrection to me.
That's true.
I showed you, I think, many moons ago, the scariest movie, I thought, and that was the Chihuahua movie,
Yeah.
right? Which follows this exactly, and so I pointed out, kids are going to memorize this movie, grow up, go to church, hear about Jesus, and say, hey,
I've seen this before.
That's Chloe. That's the Chihuahua. That's Jesus is a Chihuahua. You know, which I think it's funny in French when you say teacher's pet, you say chow chow. Person's a chow chow. It's not a Chihuahua, but well, gosh, I actually think Marx is important. I'm sorry if I'm, so distracting here. Where to go with it? Let's get back. So the object, this is Feuerbach. The object of devotion is really the capacities which make up human values or human nature. Those capacities were attributed to a being who was completely other, outside of the world, but in comparison, humanity seemed completely contemptible. So humanity was repressed for the sake of a sacrificial service to this imaginary God, right? And so instead, Feuerbach says we should instead worship man, because we're the ones that create all the art. We're the ones that create all the architecture. We're the ones that create artificial intelligence. Actually, he didn't say that, because they didn't have it yet. But you get the idea. We're the ones that should be thrilled. So this is a humanism we should be focused on. So Feuerbach's assertion that the predicates, characteristics of God and humanity are really the same is simply obviously wrong, says one of their friends, that's Max Stirner. To say that it is the subject, God, that is exaggerated and not the predicates. So instead of saying, you know a lot. That person really knows a lot. I always hear them say this, that, and I always learn a lot from them. But then to turn around and say that the predicates are omniscience. Wow, that's goofy. Why would you go and think that there's such a thing as that?
His birthday was on St. Patrick's Day.
So, for Marx, when an ideal has psychological power over a person, so he's kind of in between Stirner and Feuerbach in this, it becomes something holy. So Feuerbachian humanism was a new religion, and Marx